And action. Kiana had a question about dusting and vacuuming. And this is going to be more a tutorial on stuffy nose. In fact, I'm going to call this one DrRic question from Kiana on stuffy nose part 2. It has to do, the vacuuming and dusting is a given. In fact, I'll just break into it now. But if you are just finding me for the first time, don't forget to subscribe to me with the subscribe button, and if you hit the alert button, it'll tell you via email when I put out new videos. So dusting and vacuuming should be done twice a week, as I mentioned, pet or no pet, especially if you have a pet. If you're a parent and your teenager or your kids are just gonna make life tough and they're not gonna help you with the vacuuming and dusting, then fine. At least tell them to take care of their rooms versus the whole house. But the idea is that if you have carpeting, if you have drapery, if you keep your windows open, if you have ceiling tiles, you're gonna have dust. Dust will kick around. If you have a dog, even if that dog is hypoallergenic like a poodle, when the dog goes to poop outside in the grass or the foliage, he's gonna bring in the stuff from the outside. You would think, it's not a big deal. But you know, I have a lot of people that have really terrible noses, and it's important to decrease any possibility of nasal stuffiness. That could be from a pet, that can be from a food source, that can be from environmental allergies, that can be from this. Now it's change of season in March going into April, and you're going to have, with the weather change and the rain and the snow. Today it was actually very sunny. But then it was snowing, which I don't get. I thought global warming was a fake, but obviously something's going on, and this is weird. Anyway, you're going to have grass bloom fast, soon. And because of the drops in temperature on certain days, the toughest grasses or the toughest weeds will bloom the fastest. So what we'll have is a spread or a bloom of either pollen or some form of plant protective allergen that is going to be inhaled by this nose. If you are a normal person, you will breathe through your nose most of the day, especially at night. Now, sometimes when this nose, not sometimes, but all the time when the nose takes the air in, it warms it because of these things called the turbinates. And check out my video, DrRic tutorial, stuffy nose, and I have a picture of turbinates. It warms the air before it gets into the lungs, and it also filters with all these little cilia in the nose hairs. It filters the solutes or the pollutants that you usually find in the air so that they don't get into the lung and they get stuck on the hairs and they get stuck on the mucus that's on the hairs, and it turns into a snot ball. And usually you would think if you blow your nose, all the snot should leave out before you sleep. But that doesn't always happen. In fact, because you're taking air in and out of your nose in a 10 to 12 hour day, any snot pieces that are stuck like dingleberries on your hairs in the nose will actually dry up because of the constant breathing of air going in and out. And when they dry up, they get stuck on the hair or they get stuck on the side of the turbinate, the side of the nose. And just blowing your nose with a tissue will not work. And that's another thing. If you've ever seen what happens when you open a tissue or pull a tissue out of a box, you have all these particles that get put into the air, and it actually adds to the dust. So you see, even the things that help us with sneezing add to the dust that causes more sneezing. Maybe Kleenex has a conspiracy here. But anyway, so the idea would be if you are going to have the best night that you can have, it should be, because most of us breathe through our noses at night, it should be through a very patent or very wide open nasal passage. So the problem is if you've been inhaling crap all day, dust, pets, irritants, allergens, driving behind somebody with a diesel exhaust system, you're going to inhale crap. Your filter here is going to do what its job is filter, but it's going to also cause a little bit of swelling and accumulation of particles and pollution in here. So the idea would be, if you have an itchy nose, blow it. If you don't have an itchy nose, it's a good idea to clear the nose, blow your nose before you sleep. It's a better idea to liquefy any dry snot material in your nose before you blow it, because it'll come out easier. In fact, if you're going to paint on a wall, you usually want to clean the wall first, otherwise you're going to paint on a lot of spider webs, on a lot of pieces of dirt, and you'll just have an uneven wall. So you want to make it perfect before you paint. Same thing with the nose. If you're one of the few folks or one of my patients that uses nasal crom, nasal spray, that's a crumolin sodium. It's a mast cell stabilizer over the counter. I get mine on Amazon. It's my go-to nasal spray. It helps with allergy season. I'm a wimp when it comes to prescription medicine, so I usually go with herbals, vitamins, over the counters as much as possible, essential oils, and food groups. So I use nasal crom, but before I do the nasal crom, I rinse my nose out. Now I used to start out when I became a yoga instructor in the 2010s. It was taught to use a neti pot to irrigate the nose because stimulating and cleaning out the nose twice a day seemed to get energy to calm down at night and to start up in the morning. Also, it really helps to get water in there. Ever since then, I've been shortcutting it. I sometimes cowboy it. I take my hand underneath the faucet and I just snort some water in so that the crap that's in the nose will get liquefied, moisturized, and be easy to blow out. And you'll be surprised at the snot that blows out when you liquefy. So the more crap that you blow out, the less swelling you have, because those hairs that I talked about, they hold on to bad stuff. And when the bad stuff comes in contact with the lining of the nose, that's where the hairs come from, then it causes an irritant reaction and causes swelling. If I was to throw dust in my eye would water up and get swollen in a matter of a couple minutes. Same thing with the lining of the nose. So you know that taking that stuff away at night makes for better sleep. And if you don't believe that, just have your partner snore a couple, or sit next to somebody who snores, sleep next to somebody who snores, and you'll know. Because that irritating noise that you hear, that person that's snoring will hear it too. They're just too they're probably unconscious. But believe me, their brains are also sensing the vibration of the nose. If you were to go like this with somebody while they were sleeping, eventually they'd wake up, right? If you have a kid that sleeps with you and tosses and turns all night, you might not remember them pushing you all night, but you'll wake up really tired. If you have a pet that keeps on scratching in the middle of the night, you might not remember waking up to the scratching or movement of the bed, but you will wake up very tired. So some of that could be because of swelling. Some of that could be because of the vibrations in the nose from the snoring because of the swelling. But either way, if you work on dusting twice a week and vacuuming with a HEPA filter vacuum twice a week, you'll clean up all the crap. If you get the crap out of your nose before you sleep, you'll clean up all the crap. So those are always just easy methods to try and decrease the load on the nose at night. Make for a better sleep, make for a better workout, brighter wakening up in the morning, and faster problem solving. Better work performance, less stress, it's positive. So this I'm using or holding up because this is what you should be using if you're an allergy sufferer. You should be using this when you do the wet dusting. And by the way, I don't like the Swiffers. Sorry, Swiffer, but even though that Swiffer is, that broom or brush is electrically charged, it attracts dust. But no matter what you do, you're always going to have a brush head, and even if it attracts what's right underneath it, you're going to be pushing things just from the motion of you going like this. So something's going to fly in the air. And if you're super sensitive, you're going to inhale all that stuff. So use this kind of a mask, if you can, when you are dusting. So if you can also not use a Swiffer, maybe use N-Dust, which is supposed to be a compressed aerosolized wax. You don't want too much crap on your furniture, and you don't want that stuff as far as VOCs in the environment. But I think N-Dust or some form of N-Dust where you can spray on wax, it'll put in particles oil on your surface, and it'll be easier to wipe off. It'll when you wet the particles, the dust or the dust mites, it'll be easier to sweep them off with a washcloth or an old rag. Again, if you can have that rag, put it in the washer, wash it up without going like this and sending that stuff everywhere outside, I think it'll be better for you. If you don't like spraying stuff on furniture, well, that's fine. But if you're going to use the Swiffer, then please use one of these. If you're going to change the bag of your HEPA filter vacuum, we invested in a Dyson. I love Dysons. They're so compact, easy to use. And then when you take the canister out, I usually just cover my nose, hold it breath for a while, and press on the thing. It empties all the dirt in the garbage, close the garbage, and then I move away from that area of plume of dust and dirt, and I go back to breathing again. So if you can't hold your breath for more than 3 minutes, you got a problem, you got to practice. So that's why we have to protect ourselves when we do clean. So don't forget, if you do have allergies, especially this time of the year, spring or sometimes in the fall, start the dusting, vacuuming twice a week. Change your central air filters to something that's built for allergy sufferers. Try to wipe down the pet when the pet comes in. Try to stay, if it's the worst time of the year for you, try to avoid milk and milk byproducts and maybe gluten during that time, because I think allergens have a stacked effect. So if you have just the classic one allergen like peanut butter and you have shortness of breath, okay. But if you have the not so classic, you have multiple different allergens all at the same time that result in totally stuffy nose, itchy eyes, then you want to decrease all the other ones that you can work on while you're trying to deal with the environment. So I'd say milk and dairy and gluten might be something you can cut out very easily and substitute. So try it until season is over, then you can go back to it. Using nasal crum, using Atrovent nasal spray, using Flonase, all of them are good. I think the steroid nasal sprays have decreased in their power. I like Atrovent or ipratropium bromide if I have to. Otherwise, I go with nasal crum, especially for my patients who have a high copay for Atrovent. Rinsing out just with a neti pot by itself or nasal saline, like simply saline, that'd be fine too. You're not supposed to cowboy it like I do and sniff it in, because you got a lot, at least in Bartlett and Elgin, you got a lot of crappy water. If you have well water, same thing. In fact, well water sometimes carries with it Giardia lamblia, which is a parasite, and you can actually have that go in your sinuses, which is the reason why the CDC suggests not using regular tap water to neti pot, because of the possibilities of parasites going into the sinus. That was one case of a guy that got sinus infection and died from amoebic abscess in the sinuses in Louisiana. One case. That I don't really subscribe to that. I think that Louisiana should be asking, why is there a parasite in the tap water? But anyway, use bottled water if you can, sea salt to neutralize and make it really comfortable, and or a neti pot. And check out my video on stuffy nose from before, you might see that. So hopefully this gives you a good sense of what to do. Whoever gets the chore of doing the dusting and vacuuming twice a week, please do it properly, get a mask, and know that you're helping the community.